Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is exactly 11 in the morning. It is the 2nd of July, post Canada Day. Going to do my laundry because Monday went to do my anonymous friend's laundry, and the washer kind of have to take two-thirds responsibility for having damaged it myself. And I'm going to switch from my visage face to these beauties visage face because I love yellow flowers, and it's already hot. It's 11 in the morning a.m., 11 in the morning EST, Hawk Island time, and it's really hot. It's really hot. Really hot. I wasn't thinking it's going to be that hot, but you always got to turn your heads left and right here. Although here, if you see they coming their cars here, they have a stop sign. So there, technically, they have to stop. But you don't know. Sometimes the brakes don't function well. The citizen driver presses the accelerator instead of the brake. So that can always happen. That can always be relative to the situational context, or of course, of the car itself, right? Of the car itself, because the cars, some of them are not that new. They have added rust, and with the winters here, so all those factors in. Gotta be prudent on the streets. Turn your heads left and right, right and left, right and left, left and right. You gotta turn your heads left and right, and right and left, and just make sure, because I'm in the public, I have added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, which I would have not had under the normal circumstances. But of course, it is always something that is prudent to the characteristics of per se, that in that space and geolocation and time, there's a variation from point to point. But that point there's a partial risk, the aforementioned risk that I mentioned technically, and in the realm of possibilities, the citizen driver could press the accelerator by mistake, or the brakes malfunction by mistake. The brakes malfunctioning by mistake, or the citizen driver pressing the accelerator by mistake, in the realm of possibilities. And of course, although there's a stop sign from the east to the west, then there's also the fact that cars coming north and south also traverse, so there's more different intersecting points. Good morning, Canada, North America. Always putting my steps and my rock and roll songs for the 10, the 50, and the 3. I gotta salute the firefighters. Firefighters stay hydrated all in the heat wave until Saturday, possibly even until Sunday. It seems to have been extended, and got some storms last night. And now we got these beautiful gardens, and storm hot. Sunny, hot, storms, hot, sunny. It's like a football game, gridiron football game, not soccer. And Canada, we're going to get it going on that Saturday. Wow, versus Morocco. Canada versus Morocco should be a game. And, me, it's Canada first, United States second, Mexico third. When they face each other, you know who I'm going to cheer for, of course. First, Canada. Go Canada, go. Got that flag tatted up there. But second for the United States, then Mexico, and Haiti. I was cheering for Haiti fourth. Fifth, I was cheering for Germany, and sixth, Egypt, and seventh, I was actually cheering for Senegal, but Senegal lost. There we go. Look at those beauties. Such a beautiful garden, and it's really hot. 11. It's really, really hotter than I thought it was gonna be for the morning, right? Usually it's hot like this, like between 3 and 6, in the afternoon. Not during the morning hours. But now it's kind of very hot. Yesterday supposedly felt like 44. Oh, yesterday was Canada Day. Had a simple, cute, happy, joyous movie night with my anonymous friend. 2 good movies. We watched some good movies. One we had seen before, but other good movies, and The Mechanic Redemption, and I watched another movie, and that was, of course, a little bit of that rock and roll. And I want to watch the movie Trap again, because we renewed Netflix. I have to pay Netflix, and I gotta salute the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, welders, train conductors, electricians. You know me, it's always 24/7 for the NACWP for years and years and years, and hasn't been easy with my neurological mental divergent condition known as AS. I have AS, basically Asperger's syndrome. which is the same as higher functioning autism, or ASD1, autism spectrum disorder level 1, is the same as AS, Asperger's syndrome. So I recommend the books Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, and this one that I have with me, actually, I read it on the way from the mountain and back. This one, Asperger's from the Inside Out, has been really helpful. And the third book that I recommend, I have it at home, I show it sometimes in my videos, called Teaching Asperger's Students Social Skills Through Acting All Their World as a Stage. Teaching Asperger's Students Social Skills Through Acting All Their World as a Stage. But this one is a supportive and practical guide for anyone with Asperger's syndrome. So this has been a heaven sent. And the other one, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, also. So I gotta thank my anonymous friend. If I make $1 million, $1 billion, I'm gonna give her half. Wish I could buy her a house today, but my only stress now is financial, and it hasn't been easy. Not necessarily getting jobs or making friends, but maintaining them. For the past more than 11 years, 12 years, even since I lived in that place, moldy place where I don't like to remember that because it was still on the island of Montreal. I lived in a moldy underground basement. I didn't even have a bathtub. I have a bathtub now. I can take a cold bath and read books and meditate and do math. And me, it's 24/7 geopolitics, 24/7 rock-and-roll, 24/7 dancing. Those are my special interests. Because people with AS like myself, you have what's called special interest. And please don't use the word obsessive. It has been a big problem for parents who have children with AS, children, youth, adolescents, and even friends. If you have somebody with Asperger's syndrome, it's not that common. Most of you neurotypicals, which you are the 99%, haven't even heard about it. When I mention it, only about 1 or 2 out of 10 have heard about it or know about it. So. And you are the 99%, and we are the less than 1%. We have to build bridges. I don't have antagonistic, resentful, or hateful, any negative feelings vis-a-vis you, the 99%. I learned the hard way myself. It also took me years and years and years to accept my difference, and I'm different, but I don't like violence. I don't like violence at all, and I am rock and roll, but geopolitics and part of the LGBTQ community. As long as I can remember, I've been out in the open. I even write rock and roll songs, LGBTQ related. Those are just cuties. Anyways, the book Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is heaven sent. Look at that big butterfly. A white butterfly just flying all over. It was out of nowhere, eh? The white butterfly. Look, see it? Hey, you're going fast. How many miles an hour? How many times can you flap your wings per minute? Hey, don't follow me. Maybe it's like, hey, I got you, dragon, I know. Yeah, that's out of nowhere, it just popped up. I wonder how they're dealing with the heat wave. So it's very unprecedented heat. Very unprecedented. I don't mind the heat as long as I stay hydrated, and it's important to stay hydrated, It's really hot in the morning, and that's a heaven sent. I guess through my anonymous friend who supported me, because since from about 2015 spring, I've been kind of semi-officially diagnosed by many citizens along the way. Said, you have AS, you're on the spectrum of autism. That's why your brain is different. You see things differently, and that's why you have this. You're challenged socially. You have social challenges. That's and let's be honest. We have the different degrees of disability, socially especially. That's why the book, you can deduct, infer, discern by the title, Teaching Asperger's Students Social Skills Through Acting All Their World as a Stage. Teaching Asperger's Students Social Skills Through Acting All Their World as a Stage. And sometimes it helps you. Here, for example, I calculated that I had 6 seconds. But in this area that I had to traverse in those 6 seconds is a margin which, of course, has to be rushed. And see how my brain works? See this bus, for example, is a hybrid bus. Now, I look at this bus and I see mathematics. You might say, math? What do you mean mathematics? Well, the bus is in motion, right? So it has a velocity. I know that it's going south. I know that it's a hybrid, thus it consumes a proportion in percentage per every kilometer, every 10 kilometers, every meter, let's say every kilometer, and the distance that it goes, the distance that it travels, it will consume a certain amount of well, both electricity and gas. Electricity and gas, both, because it's a hybrid. So I will have to know the proportion and the numbers to work with it. So until I get those numbers, that detailed information from the engine and of course the builders of the bus, then I would just estimate. And it's not basically speculation, it's more estimations. So let's say it's 50-50, and of course maybe that means that it consumes per 100 kilometers 5 liters of gas and a certain amount of electricity. And keep in mind that here in Quebec, the electricity is clean, zero pollution, zero emission. Love you all. So thank you for cheering me up. The crows always cheer me up. I always get a rock and roll song, priestess of the goddess, got those kisses. But anyways, there's always math in my mind, as you can see from my past videos, that I'm no Claude Shannon or Stefano Lobleza, but I always do math. So in this case, the mathematics which I do is of course a math which is related to the numbers which have to do with the consumption rates of the cars, of the individual cars, right? Because all cars in motion have a consumption rate. All cars have a consumption rate, but when they're in motion, that consumption rate is mathematically quantifiable. So that is mathematically quantifiably per meter, per 10 meters, and once you get the distance added to 1,000 meters, that will make it that it's 1,000 meters is 1 kilometer. Right? There's like 1,000 grams is 1 kilo, and then 1,000 kilos is 1 ton. The weights, right? The classification of the weights. And so the classification of the weights and the weights which are counterbalanced by the other weights in that domain are always present in the mathematical representations and estimations. Be careful on the scaffolding and have a good work day. Just stay hydrated. Today's really hot, you know. Good to have a job. I had many jobs. It's just that with of course AS, Asperger's syndrome, of course, kept losing the jobs and getting on the left and the right. But I loved the jobs. Most of the jobs that I had was good experiences, you know. But with AS, it's not just me, of course. You have to know that it's not me as an individual who has a specific individual inclinations and special interests which are according to me, for me as an individual. But when you look at the whole Aspie community, right, we as a community, we're a tiny minority. We're a tiny minority. So the tiny minority, which we are, less than 1%, in our community, or for our community, the unemployment rates are, got a beautiful garden there, 80%. It got a bit better, so there was some improvement. So that is just the relationship of the unemployment rates. 80% though. So it was 90. So it got a little bit better. In the 90s and early 2000s, in the 90s and early 2000s, it was around 90. So there has been some improvement. Better some improvement than no improvement, right? So some progress in the past 25 years. About 10%, let's say. But it's still 80% unemployment for Aspies, right? It's not that we don't get the jobs, we do, but then we lose them because it can be hard for us. The social skills, we might not have a filter. Aspies might breach personal space, might have misunderstandings in communications. For us, sometimes language sometimes has to be very precise and direct. Unless you're saying, oh, I'm joking, or specify that you're joking, or don't take it literally, or that's not what I meant. Yeah, it has to be sometimes explained properly because our brains are different, eh? And so we might not understand the micro expressions, and we have sympathy. Empathy is different from sympathy. So we do our compassion mostly by action, at least myself. That's how I do it, by acts of goodness and kindness, charity, volunteering, and acts of goodness and kindness, right? Acts of goodness and kindness, right? Acts of goodness and kindness, which you all must increase on. Wow, I love passing by this garden. This is so beautiful. Look at that. So gorgeous. So these beautiful roses also, eh? There we got there. So that's what we have, in the beautiful roses and bushes here, right? And those twins, I also like them. They're kind of pinkish. Eh? Look at that pink. I call them the twinettes, but they kind of look like twins, aren't they? Just adorable. They are, eh? Although if you notice, one kind of has white flowers, eh? And these are also twins, the yellow twins there. I love yellow flowers. And so there's always some type of math going on in my brain. And again, to more to the condition here across Canada, the heat wave, Great Canadian 2026 heat wave. This is going to be the first of twins or triplets, or a whole family of the sun. But felt like 44. I don't think I ever heard that. Very rare in the past 12 years. Past 12 years, very rare. I haven't. It's very rare. This feels like 44. And yeah. So AS, Asperger's syndrome, it's not a disease. It's not an illness, but yeah, and it's so more or less for different Aspies, there's a disability, it's not to negate it, and the spectrum can be complex. The spectrum is complex. Let's not try to simplify it that it's not. Autism is a complex spectrum of neurodivergent conditions, right? It's one condition that's with a spectrum, right? It has variations, and it could be really different from Asperger's syndrome, which is now, because it merged in 2013, 2014, it merged with the autism spectrum. So it's ASD1, autism spectrum disorder, level 1, or HFA, high functioning or higher functioning autism. These are just amazing. Look how tall and beautiful. This is a great garden. Look at those. Garden. Those are just so tall, eh? Have some nice gardens here. Got some nice gardens everywhere, but this corner specifically also with some of those flowers, which are amazing. So it's a complex condition, right? I don't require much support. In certain cases, I am special needs, but special needs more in the social dynamic. In the social dynamic. So that is just the social dynamic which exists for me. Look at those beauties, eh? They're just gorgeous. And I learned the hard way. With 80% unemployment, you realize that 8 out of 10 Aspies are pretty much underemployed or unemployed. That's 11 times higher than neurotypicals. And I'm not looking for any pity, any consolation. I don't want none of that. I don't want no consolation, no pity, no nothing. I want my dream. I want work, because I'm working every day in my own way, artistically and geopolitically, and I want my dream, the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom, to take fruition, which is fundamentally a mass public-private partnership, and my work in geopolitics is indispensable. That's what I know most, and of course along that is something which I did some of work here and there, especially I did some work on the scaffolding a few years ago, not so long ago. It was fun. I installed the scaffolding. I learned how to install. Well, that was after practice, but it was only a few weeks. 2024 already, in September, October. But it was good experience, I guess, overall. Mounted the scaffolding and went on the scaffolding and assisted scaffolding work. Mounted it, and so I was up there on the scaffolding, going up and down it, and that was. But the person that I worked with, I let the person know from the beginning. Beautiful yellow. I let the person know from the beginning that I have Asperger's syndrome, and the person kind of knew what it was, wasn't too sure. I said, "Oh yeah, I've encountered it in the past, but I had to refresh the memory, I guess, because it's. And I have to explain to let a person know that is something that I live with. It's not a disease, obviously. It's not a mental disease. It's just our brains are different. Interestingly enough, more Aspies, people on the spectrum, are gender diverse and sexual diverse, part of the LGBTQ community, like a few times higher. But we have high dropout rates from high school and higher education. Very high dropout rates. Look at those beauties. Just amazing, aren't they? Beautiful orangey type of yellow. But we have also possess great skills. Generally, we're above average in mathematics. Above average in mathematics. And above average in math. And higher linguistic verbal skills as it comes to. And we can also, beautiful garden, look at that, gorgeous. We can also excel we can excel a lot at our special interests. They have a variation. And with me, there's always mathematics at some point going on, right? There's always some variations or some math going on in my brain, you know. So the math is ever present. Mathematical calculations, mathematical estimations, proportions, ratios, and all those which are, of course, involved in certain activities will know that there's a lot of, and you gotta be watching for branches. And you see here how I detect that. Gotta slow it down and let the citizen. I wanted to make sure I cross safely and let the citizen pass with the dog, and I calculated mathematically the proportion. That's why I went slightly to the left. Right, I went slightly, I took 4 steps to the left. I have this protocol, which is scientific mathematical. I do what I call the 4 steps protocol, all the imperial citizen public security protocol. So if I estimate that it's best for me to take a little deviation from a straight line, basically, because if I go in a straight line, a bit of the Aspie clumsiness, then I know that it's best if I take a distance to make sure that I'm safe and my aunties, uncles are safe, and my liberty, their liberty, and my freedom, their freedom are balanced in a co-harmonious equilibrium. But I will always be an Aspie, you know. There's no medication. I can only manage the characteristics. This stick. So you gotta be watching for branches here. Sometimes they fall from above. If it's windy, here less, but on the mountain more. Here less, but on the mountain more. But it's of course always the relationship of what we have with the beauty of the streets of the civilization. Or no, the trees, The trees. The trees shed branches when it's stormy, especially on the mountain. So we gotta watch out for that. And today I took the window of opportunity for my laundry because so I couldn't postpone it. I had at least 6 items which needed, especially the socks. In a beautiful little public garden. Please don't throw the trash there. Put it in the garbage or in the recycling because it belongs to all of us. And so, yes, again, it's not a disease. It's a neurological mental divergent condition, and we have our peculiar ways of seeing the world, which can be strange, awkward, and bizarre, and certain of our characteristics. You know, we might be in a social setting and might do some movements, and because of stimming or certain ritual-like body movements, and we have our ritual routines. Certainly myself, for years and years and years, I march, I go to the mountain, I go to the river, and I rock and roll, and I do geopolitics. It structures our life. It incorporates our life. It brings us joy, right? Me, when I'm engaged in either mathematical calculations, rock and roll, or when I dance as the priestess of the goddess, or when I, of course, do geopolitics or geopolitical analysis and revisions and re-theorizing and going back in time, then I'm in my zone. I'm joyous, I'm content, I'm happy, but I can be super intense, and many Aspies. That's why a lot of problems, as the book pertains and discusses, that some parents who don't know exactly, and back more in the past, in the 90s and early 2000s, less and less now because it's more and more understood. Those special interests have to be supported and nourished, because it's not a regular obsession. It's not a regular obsession like for you, for a neurotypical you, the 99%. For us Aspies, our special interests are not to be deemed as obsessive, as of negative. We can excel. It proves me. I have the proof. Yeah, I predicted what's happening now in 2019. In 2019, I predicted that there was going to be an international conflagration. Look at that beautiful flower there. In 2019, I predicted that there was going to be an international conflagration. In 2019, I predicted, long before Uncle Connie discussed and gave his Davos speech, long before Uncle Connie's Davos speech, I predicted that there will be an international conflagration, a type of World War III type of situation and scenario, right? I predicted it. I have the proof. I launched a sequence of videos once I discuss the aforementioned, and I have the proof because I have the videos, and I discuss it in October 2019. So more than 6 years before Uncle Connie's famous Davos speech. Uncle Connie's famous Davos speech. Uncle Connie's famous Davos speech. His speech was, of course, about the rupture of the world order. So I predicted it long before it happened, in a general overall manner. And of course, I have the proof because consequently I have the videos, discussing them. So it's good to have a job, and that's how we got, and so we got it here on the go, and always got to put it for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, the plumbers, train conductors. Yeah. one of the reasons why I love coming here is that there's lots of mathematics. And of course, we're going to discuss the math behind the laundromat on this 2nd of July. And, for me, math is a very joyous occasion. And I decided to use the $4 machine because the $3 machine would have been not enough. See, this is the $3 machine. And this is the $4 machine. That's $3. And if it would have not been enough, it would have been too much. For $5, it would have been a waste. And you also have the $2.25. Those are the $2.25 machines. So you have different types of machines. And of course, there's plenty of mathematics here. One of the mathematics, which is, of course, more or less obvious, it is the relationship with the subtractions and the addition of the consumption rates of the machines. The consumption rates of the machines in terms of their consumption of water, how much water they consume, or of course the water in relation to the water consumption or the electricity consumption. And here, by the way, the Hydro-Quebec, all this electricity is from Hydro-Quebec. So the electricity from Hydro-Quebec is clean, zero pollution, zero emission. It does not pollute, right? It does not pollute. It is an electricity which does not pollute at all. It comes from 63 generating power stations, of which the newest ones are laundromat 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So that is super important to acknowledge. To acknowledge and to interpose is, of course, this washer is and has a consumption rate, but I use cold water also, so I don't change this, right? I don't change that. So of course, I don't change it at all. I leave it be, and I never use hot water. I only use cold water. So you have to know that there's different options. So there's so much mathematics here that one could spend hours and hours just dissecting it or analyzing it, because of course it's basically estimation that I'm doing estimations because I don't have the numbers. For example, I don't know how much the $3 machine or the $4 machine consumes in water. I have no idea how much water it consumes, but it will consume an amount of water. That amount of water will be an exact amount every time the machine is used, and every time a different setting, a different option of washer, whether cold, hot, or for the different machines that are used, right? So it's in terms of their usage. For example, I will now hydrate because it's hot. So I have a bottle of water that's filled to the top. It's just water. I put water, filtered water, and it's 710 milliliters, 710, right? So if I take a sip out of it, that's a portion that can be either estimated in milliliters, because this is 710 milliliters, right? It's 710 milliliters, right? Or it can be estimated in percentage, because 710 millimeters, that's not a liter. It's less than a liter, right? It's 71% of a liter, actually. You can quantify it as 71% of a liter, 710, right? Because 1,000 mLs equals 1 liter, so it's less than a liter. So the amount of water that I'm now ingesting, every time that I take a sip, it's also milliliters, but it's also a percentage, percentage. Just like I'm doing this laundry, this washing cycle, it will be a percentage of all the water used today. Of all the water used today. I'm using the $4 machine, right? So maybe I drank half. Right? half of the water, half for now, 1/3 for later. So my machine for today's data set points, we use XY amount of liters for the cycle of washing. Maybe it's 4.4, maybe it's 3.7, maybe it's 5.0, maybe it's 6.6, maybe it's between 3 liters and 7.7 liters, maybe it's between 2.5 liters and 5 liters, but there's more likely that it's liters, right? It's liters. A few bottles, right? Let's say a few bottles like mine, 4, 5, 6 bottles, 3.5 bottles, because it has different cycles. See, I'll show you. So, for example, now it will spin in one direction, and afterwards it will go in the other direction. So, as it has a spinning cycle, the spinning cycle is always directed. Well, now I could say that it's spinning west, 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 because it's facing north, right? This camera is facing south, so I can pinpoint in the directions, whether east, west, north, south. So I can say that it's going west, that it's spinning west, west, west. It's gonna stop and it's gonna go counter. You can say clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on the position, because it's how they're positioned. Really, they could have been positioned in front of me here instead of here, right? Because there's an outlet there. There's an outlet, but it's not for us to determine now. So the determinant, of course, is related to. See. See, it spins in the other direction. So consequently, it will turn in the other direction as well. And so the mathematics is that it will be always east or west in this position that I'm on. In this position that I'm on, it will be east and west. But if it would have been placed in another direction, it could have been representing north or south. So it's always the direction that the machine faces that determines which direction it spins in, because of its position, right? I'm trying to kind of clarify that, because it's how it's faced. It could have been facing south. It could have been facing east. The face of it. This is kind of the face or the entrance of the machine, right? The face or the entrance, I'm calling this the face. So the face is facing north. That's why it looks like it's going east and west. See, it's going west, west, west. That direction is west. And then it will stop and it will go east. So for all this cycle, it will consume, it will drain the water, and then it will, by the way, I'm auctioning everything that I'm having here for, give you all my laundry for $1 million, give half to my anonymous friend, pay my $10,000 debt, and I'm going to donate a small percentage for food security and for Aspies and for women's sports, for food security, Aspies and women's sports like hockey, Victoire. See how it spins? So it's consuming water. It will drain and it will consume the different water. So it has different consumptions. However, not all consumptions of the different machines consume, because they're different sizes. So I didn't use the $3 machine because I figured that I have too much for the $3 machine. But it would have been wasted for the $5. It would have been wasted for the $5. So the $5 would have been a waste. So that's where the relationship comes in with the $5 or not, or whatever the case may be. So now I'm going to count how much money I have left. So there's always water and electricity being consumed, but it also consumes, of course, a third, tokens, right? Because these tokens each represent a quarter. So I'm going to count how much I have. If I have 7, I'm not going to change any money, basically. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 675. 675. So that's how much I have left over. So in theory, I can do two $3 machines next time. $2 $3 machines, because they're all tokens, right? They're all tokens. So each and every one of these tokens represents a quarter. And of course, it's important to disinfect also the hands because there's the circulation of the tokens that it's internal. There, even myself, I can put germs. I was sneezing earlier and cleaning my room, so I can always also carry germs. That's right. Can I use the disinfectant because I touched tokens? And I have to use it twice because then I'm gonna. If I change some more tokens, then I'm gonna be. It smells strongly, but it's good. It's effective. It kills the bacteria, kills the germs, kills the microbes. Actually, this is not the original one. It's kind of like similar to this one, but I have a fill for refilling it at home. So basically, I'm refilling this bottle, so I save money. I don't have to buy because this only contains 59 milliliters. So at home, I had a 1,000 milliliters. I have a big one at home. So this only contains 2 ounces. 2 ounces, which is 59 milliliters. See? And another thing about Aspies is that we always check little numbers like that. For example, see those little numbers there? We always can check little numbers and where it's, all these concerned with details. For example, I'll show you here. See on this machine, there's a white number there. The white number, and there's the black number. So those numbers were not put there for nothing. They have a motive. They look like classification and sequences because if you look at the machines, they're made in Sweden. See? The machines are made in Sweden. Right? So they're Swedish. And you might have been coming here for 3.5 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and you might have never even noticed those numbers there. It's possible that somebody has been coming here for so long and might have not even noticed those numbers. So it's possible that somebody comes here and never notices those numbers. And it's possible that you might have been coming here for a long time, and of course, you might have not even noticed those numbers yourself. I'm just gonna see how many quarters I have. So maybe I'll change the quarters into. I'll change quarters. 4 quarters. Actually, I can change quarters and I guess. With the quarters, So these quarters they're important if you want to change, because you need to change either $5 bill. Well, you can change $5 bills, $10 bills, $20 bills as well. So it's not just it's coins or banknotes as well. There's machines. There's 2 different machines. But anyways, each token represents a quarter. So there's also added to the water consumption and the electricity consumption, there's the amount, right? Because I'm using the $4 machine. This is the $3 machine. In the back, there's the $3 machine and the $4 machine. $4 machine, and there's even $5 machines. But those $5 machines are more for the bigger ones, right? They're for bigger ones. They're not for the small ones, They're not for the small ones. So of course, the smaller machines contain less, right? The bigger the machines, you have to pay $1 more, so it increases. So the $4 machine is bigger than the $3 machine, the $5 machine is bigger than and the $3 machine is bigger than the $2.25 machine, because you also have the 2.25. So you have the option for $2.25, the $3 ones, the $4 ones, and so you have the 2.25, the $3, the $4, and the $5. So you have 4 different options, but there's 2 different types of $3 machines. So they all consume water, right? Water is always consumed. So just like I drank a bit from the water, how many milliliters did I drink? Maybe 44 in that sip. that will represent 44 will represent, well, that's less than 10% because it has initially 710 milliliters. So 71 milliliters is 10%. Seven, it's 100% is 710 milliliters for my water bottle. 100% is 710 milliliters. That means that 71 is 10%. So if I drank 44 milliliters, that's about 6.6%, right? So I could say that every sip I'm drinking around 6.6%, or 5% or 7, depending on the bigger sips. If it's a bigger sip, I can be drinking 10 or 15%, right? Because if I hold it and I count to 10, then I can drink a third of it. So that's 35%. Or I can drink a quarter of it right away, or I can chug it all. I chug it all. That's 100%, 710 milliliters. So maybe this machine will consume 3 liters or 4 liters or 5 liters or 6 or 7. How many liters it is, it will be added to the total of machines that were used today. So if each machine will have an amount of liters that it will use for the wash cycle, to wash the clothes. So each machine will use a certain amount, X, Y, or Z amount of liters for washing. So add them all together for yesterday. Maybe yesterday, 444 liters of water were used. Well, yesterday was Canada Day, so I don't know about that. But today, I'm a data point, and this machine will have an exact amount. It could be point, of course, certain milliliters. It could be 4.445. It could be 4.445. So that means almost 4.5 liters, or 3.5 liters, or 3.743, 3.744. So that is, of course, the amount of milliliters which will be in concordant. So those milliliters will always be also added, because once it's 1,000 milliliters, 1,000 mLs equals 1 liter. So for today, until the place closes, up to the last one, when the last one is processed, that data will exist in real time mathematically. Only the grand arithmetician of the universe, or if I would have that information, I would kind of be able to calculate. And I love doing math. I'm no Claude Shannon or Stefano Dobleja, but I love doing mathematics. And there's always mathematics in my brain. And I love coming here. One of the points that when I do math, I'm joyous and concentrated, and I could do this for hours. But I would have to have the information. And there's not only that's being consumed, but the electricity. Because every machine uses an exact amount of electricity, right? So sometimes the spin cycle, now it will use an amount of electricity, because of course the electricity that needs to be used for the engine to spin. So of course all the spinning that's being done now, it's increasing in velocity. Well, actually, let's say it's increasing in strength and speed. So because it's increasing in strength and speed, it will automatically consume more electricity, right? We can infer by deduction that now it will consume more electricity than it does before. So, of course, than it does before, meaning that it increases in strength and speed. So now, probably the electricity consumption rate per second, per 10 seconds, per 15 seconds, has increased, even doubled or tripled or more, right? So that's all we have to do. That's what it's. Well, I would have. There's that information. It's possible that it came in the instruction manual, or the directives, the booklets, or that it's written somewhere in the back of the machine, the consumption rate per cycle. It could be XYZ 0 point something kilowatts, or whatever the case may be, in kilowatts per hour or per cycle. Well, in this case, it's not per hour, because it could be quantified per hour, but different cycles, sometimes it's 31 minutes, sometimes 33, sometimes 37 minutes, depending on the cycle that's being put on. So, of course, depending on the cycle that's being put on is, of course, something which we have, of course, to correlate, as it's integral to the calculation of the mathematical equation, because these are equations fundamentally. These are equations. These are equations which have to be counterbalanced. So there's the water consumption, but there's something else. I put laundry detergent, so I don't use powder detergent. I put liquid detergent. I don't use bleach. I put liquid detergent only. I don't use liquid fabric softener, or liquid or powder. I only use that one. I only use liquid detergent. I only use liquid detergent. I don't use liquid fabric softener, and I don't use detergent. This is what I use. So that will also be a consumption, but that consumption comes from the citizen. But it's still a consumption in many ways. Of course, it's not part of the machine. It's something that you add. But the water in the machine will always be added all up, because let's say 44 different cycles are going to be done today. I'm one of them. I'm one of them, specifically for the $4 machine. I could be another one that's $5. Somebody could put the $3. Somebody could put the $2.25. So that's where the integral aspect represents itself, right? Because it's not always the same. It's not always the same. So it will always vary. It will always have a variance. So that variance will be, of course, in concordant to what the cycle is for the different individual that's using the different machine. So it could be a lot of variety. It could be that most of the machines that will be used today would be $3 ones or $4 ones. There would be different numbers. If it's 44 or 50 or total, then it could be that 20 of those were $3 machines, and then 10 were $5 machines, and the rest were $4 machines, and some would be 5 or 6, maybe $2.25, because you have also the $2.25 option. So, and it could be that a citizen uses 2 or 3 machines. Sometimes I use 2 machines. So then I add to the data points. So I add it, right? It's an addition. It's an addition. That is an addition. So that addition will always be in relationship to what it is as a totality, because it will add the individual citizen like myself who comes here. Today I only have one data point, the $4 machine. So this $4 machine that I'm using will consume water. So you have the water consumption, which is probably in the liters. It's just a few bottles, right? A few liters per my cycle. Then it's the electricity as well. What I put is about, of course, 400 milliliters, of course, of 156 milliliters of the liters, of course, what we have now. So of course the liters are always divided in milliliters. So the milliliters which we have, of course, now together are going to be added, because added overall, if somebody puts detergent and liquid bleach, liquid fabric softener, then that will be added, of course. That will be added, of course, to the correlations. And of course, that correlation will be, of course, always an addition. It will be an addition. It will not be a subtraction, obviously. We cannot subtract it. We add it. We consume it. Just like we add it, of course, it's a paradox, because it's a minus, but to get the total, we have to add it. In reality, it's a consumption rate. It consumes a certain amount of electricity and water. Water, of course, and electricity. But that amount is added, but that's as a consumption. But from each and every one, if mine consumes 4.4 liters and then the other one's 5 liters, then it will be added as a total at the end, but that will be the consumption. That will be a negative. So it's kind of paradoxical, but that's just how the math goes, right? So for example, today on the heat wave, if I drink 3 bottles of water like this, then it's 710 milliliters. So of course, all that 710 milliliters will be times 3. So 710 times 3, that's 2.1. 2.100 and, wow. It's actually 2.13, right? Because 13 is 130. Because the 10 milliliters is times 3 is 30 milliliters. So it's 2 liters and 130 milliliters. 2 liters and 130 milliliters. So of course, all that faculty is what we have, of course, to calculate. So it's 2.113. 2 liters and 130. 2 liters and 130. So of course, all that relationship will be in that faculty of addition. In the mathematical equation is that it's an addition, but I consume it. Just like all the cycles today, or the ones that were yesterday or the day before, or the month of June. Let's say for the month of June, because now we're the 2nd of July. For the month of June, let's say there were 500 machines being used, or 500 times. Some of those machines were $3, $4, $5, $2.25, and there were 10,589 liters, point 444. 444 is the milliliters, right? So close to half a liter. So of course, all that relationship is what we have now. Is of course that the domain where we coexist in the relationship of existence will be as an addition. So all those were added, all the machines were added for the month of June, with the $3 machine, $4 machines, and the $5 machines, and the other machines. And of course, all those were added together to give us the total number. And of course, all that total number will be, of course, an addition, because we have to add it. But that is the consumption. so, so there's a little bit of a paradox, if you will, because obviously that's minus. Obviously that's minus because it's consumption. So it's minus from the water supply of basically the city, or the tanks, the water tanks in the certain area of the big city metropolis, Montreal. It's related to the aqueducts, and gotta salute the public workers, eh? Just as we salute the bakers, the butchers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, gotta salute those workers in the 20th century. Took decades to build. Civilization is a privilege. Just like having electricity, I gotta salute Hydro-Quebec because our electricity doesn't pollute, right? Our electricity is free of pollution, so it does not pollute. In concordia to the electricity not polluting, we have the electricity the electricity doesn't pollute here in Quebec because it comes from water, from 63 generating power stations. And of course, for 63 generating power stations, it's of course 63 generating power stations is, or are, providing us with electricity that does not pollute. Comes from water, from the lakes, from the rivers, the lakes, the water in Quebec, all the way to the United States. Our electricity goes to 3 states or several states, all the way to Manhattan Island, 1/5, 20%. I gotta salute that work. That's really amazing. And I want to go visit La Romaine. I want to go visit Bay James, I want to go visit the Bay James. The Bay James is one of the biggest. It was top biggest. Now, of course, there were in the 21st century there were other developments, but in the 20th century it was among the top 5, I believe. It still probably is among the top 10, maybe now top 20 biggest hydroelectric projects ever built by mankind. The Bay James here in Quebec is one of the biggest ever hydroelectric dam projects ever built. Isn't that amazing? I think that's really amazing, and it's something that I want to see. And of course, now all the electricity in Quebec is going from those dams and those transmission lines. There's how many transmission lines are there? Where they're different sizes: small, medium, and extra large, or extra large, maybe like 4 sizes, right? Just like the bridges we have to build between me as a neurodivergent and you, the neurotypical, small, medium, large, or extra large. And of course, those transmission lines power the whole city, power this laundromat and this machine with clean energy that is energy that does not pollute. So that has to be correlated in the effectuations, of course, and that has to be taken into account, because it's something that I'm definitely proud of. And of course, as I do my part for the environment, and I call for the creation of the dancing goddess army. The DGA is gonna dance priestess of the goddess for, of course, the hydroelectric dams, of course, to always be for the hydroelectric dams to be built as well. So of course, all that correlation is something which we have the dimensions, of course, and the faculty of the knowledge and the information, which and the brains and the muscle to build them, to construct them, the brains and the muscle to build those dams. And those dams provide electricity to the United States northeast as well. So we have to consider that. And every day now it's a heat wave, so people are probably staying more at home or using their ACs. So probably there's an increased stress. I don't have an AC, air conditioning at home, and I don't really put the fan because I still live in a basement. And where I used to live, I have no nostalgia. My life got better. Me, I don't have nostalgia at all. 2017, I crossed Canada coast to coast, and my life got better ever since. I've been on the Finder journey, and before that, I spent a few years depressed and suicidal. I used to live here's actually my old neighborhood where I am. There's nothing that I will to go back, but it's just because I love the laundromat. Sometimes I go back for shopping or for going to the movies or just to make my marches and my meditations. But when I'm saying nothing that I will to go back to, is because I have no nostalgia. I used to live in a moldy place. I didn't even have a bathtub. I did not even have a bathtub. I have one now. I can take a bath over the weekend, and Gonna watch some movies with my anonymous friend over the 4th of July, and when Canada's gonna play Morocco, and excited for that. And it hasn't been easy with Asperger's. That's why I recommend this great book. This is a heaven sent, a supportive and practical guide to anyone, for anyone with Asperger's syndrome, with AS. And what I really like about is this one, this specific. So this is very specific. See, and in the number one place, see the characteristic, which I have it, and many Aspies have it, the majority, myself included, for many, many years, has been geopolitics, sports and fitness, and rock and roll, dancing being my favorite sport. But see, intense absorption in a topic or field of interest. But you neurotypicals, many of you might interpret it in a negative way, and that's why it can be a problem. So, individual is obsessed. But for us, it provides joy, right? It provides joy. So that one can also be a problem for us Aspies. See? Yeah, this has been a story. So yeah, a text, either reading or writing in text, can be better. Professorial, monotone manner of speaking. Yeah, this I have a trouble with. This one less, somewhat. Yeah, small talk can be difficult. I've increased tremendously since I've accepted it in October 2024. But this is also the special. We have ritual routines. And yeah, greater than normal. I'm no Claude Shannon, Stefano de Bleja, but I love math, and I could do math 24/7. Music, I guess I create rock and roll and rap songs, Do a little bit of rap, rock and roll, rap, a little bit of both. I love dancing and androgynous pansexual rock and roll, but always for the firefighters, bakers, butchers, nurses, plumbers, and so now I drank 100% because I drank it all, and that's the rock and roll, and there's lots of math here. There's math everywhere, and I love math. I'm no Claude Shannon, Stefano de Bleja, but I always do mathematics, A million, another million. Oops. Black sock. I watched the Canadian flag auctioning it for $1 million. Canada flag. I think next week I'm gonna have to come to wash just the bed, the bed sheets, Bed sheets. The bed sheets. Make sure nothing is stuck. Gotta make sure, gotta make sure I don't leave anything trash or. Just gonna change some money. You got different machines, and this one I was told that it works better. Oh, it doesn't take quarters. This one takes quarters. Yeah. Just wanna. What did I use? Oh, I used more, eh? I used more. So, just gonna take some more. So that's how we change it. And now I'm just gonna count the money. 1. Well, these are tokens that I changed. 2, 3, and 4. So 4 for 4 basically. I replenished the ranks and I replenished what I had consumed. But 4 for 4, so that brings me back to the balance, right? Because I put $4, which is 16 tokens, and now I have the tokens, and I'm gonna have to disinfect my hands, because I touched the tokens, and the tokens carry bacteria, germs, and microbes. There's bacteria, bacteria, germs, and microbes. So I have to watch for that, because if I would have a laundromat, it would be an internal structure for different ways, which I would use it. But here we go, and that's how we got a rock and roll, and always for the 10, the 50, and the 3, and look at that big red. Grateful, thankful. I love coming here. I love this place, and it's a good business, and I'm grateful for it. It's still not that expensive as the other one. In my new neighborhood, I don't go there because actually, to be honest, it's more pricey. So I save $2 by coming here, basically. By walking here, it's like twice the length to walk, but I save $2 about something like that, or $1 or $2. But I don't know. Now I have the tokens, and sometimes I go to the other place, but now I'm gonna probably have to come either Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. On one of those days, and it's when I discuss math and specifically mathematics as it relates, of course, to the laundromat. I always like to do a revision, then I have to, of course, add the relationship, of course, of where we have. So, of course, all the relationship, of course, of where we have is, of course, all the relationship in the faculties which are explicit to the mathematics as it is integral without being too academic or intellectual to that specific location. But now that we are outside and we've exited the domain, I just want to finish with what I would have if I would have a laundromat in terms of the coins. If I would operate it on a token based and not quarter or money based. If I would have tokens, I would have a cycle or 3 or 4 sets of tokens. 3 or 4 sets, because I will always clean one, and it was the one that will be in use will always be a clean one, and then I would have a reserved. Every Sunday I would clean. Every week or bi-weekly, I would clean it. So that would be the cleaning. And of course, that's the cleaning where we have. And these are nice flowers, eh? Wow, those are really nice. Those are really nice flowers. anyways, that is where we are now in the relationship, of course, of being and integrally in the domain. That's what we have now. But it's something. Look at those flowers. Also, it's something nice. And that's what we have now to be related, of course, to be. But it is something which we have as the faculty of the domain, that we have more multiple bouquets of flowers here, which are just gorgeous and amazing. Before I get into the math, and you know me, I love flowers, especially the yellow ones. So back to what I was saying, the actual math that is integral to the tokens is that it's an internal usage. So every day there's people coming, but it's internal. So tokens are only used there at the specific location. So depending how many tokens they are, it should be good to always have a circulation of tokens. Basically, to have a circulation of tokens which is integral to the circulation. Right? What I mean to say is that each token represents a quarter. So for example, I had to put 16 of them. So you put one by one. So you have to touch them individually, right? There's the math. I put one, and then the second, the third, because each token is not $1, it's a quarter. So I put 16. But those 16 potentially had a lot of germ, bacteria, microbes, germs, bacteria, microbes, germs, bacteria, microbes, right? Rather than if I would have put a $5 bill and I would have gotten the change. There's more, the quantity. And individually you have to put it, right? Even the $3 machines, you still have to put 12 coins. The $5, you put 20. You see what I'm saying? Because it's a quarter, basically. So basically there's a higher added risk of multiple germs and bacteria and microbes on the tokens. So what I would do is I will always have an internal. The ones that are in circulation will be taken out after the end of the week. So Sundays they will be taken out, and then of course you will be related, of course, to be put into circulation again after several weeks, because I would have 3 sets or 4 sets, so it would be a circular, like a circle. So there it would have A, B, C, or A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, because the circle can be divided in 90 degrees. And if 90 degrees represents a week, then we have 4 weeks. So every Sunday, I would change the tokens in circulation. And one would be in reserve that are cleaned, one would be cleaned in circulation, and one would be being cleaned. Right? So I would have the one in circulation, the one that's out of the circulation, the one being cleaned, the one that's already clean, ready to replace Sunday, the other one that's in circulation, that's already the clean one, will replace it. So it'll be a circular rotation. So that would minimize the risk for bacteria, germs, and microbes, right? That was just my system that I would do. That's sort of scientific mathematical system. And it's kind of simple though, simple, but that's what I would do, because you use tokens. And since I started going there, because I gotta take 2/3 responsibility for damaging the washer in October, and of course that has been the relationship, of course, of the relationship with that. And so always in that regard, it will always be such a way that the tokens would flow. In other words, it will be a flow, right? So back to the mathematics in that regard. So for example, math is everywhere. When I say that math is everywhere, that you might not see it, it is really. And of course, as it is pertinent back to the laundry machine used a certain amount of water. So I'm a data set for the $4 machine today. It's water and it's electricity consumption, because it runs on electricity. So there's those two mathematical variables that vary from. They're the constant for the machine, the $4. They have constants for the individual machine, and there's variables between the machines, because it's not the same for the $3 machine and the $4 machine, and not the same consumption, because the $3 machine is smaller in capacity. The $3 machine is smaller in capacity from what I estimate, it's about a quarter, 25% smaller. It could be a third, because I don't have the two dimensions, but it's about that. It's at least like 20% smaller, the $3 machine than the four, or vice versa. The $4 machine is about a quarter or 20% bigger in size, the volume that it can take in for the washing cycle. Thus, the 5 is bigger than both. The 5 will be way bigger than the $3 machine. The $5 machine will be way bigger than the $3 machine, but less bigger than the. So you see how we can go on and on about the different mathematical expressions, but that's just the way to express the size. Or the greater or lesser sign, the greater or lesser, right? Greater or lesser with the tip, or the look at that. Look at those. So you have the tip in the side. You have the tip, like the tip of the arrow or the opening. What's in after the opening is greater than. And what you have in the other one is, of course, the other mathematics. So you have the greater than, then you have the other side, and then you have the other side, and then you have the other side. So you have the other side of what we have now in that relationship. You have the smaller size and the bigger size. So that's greater than, right? The tip like that, greater than, or or it could be almost equal, or approximations. When you have the equal sign, that it means that, for example, 1,000 milliliters will equal 1 liter. Or 1 liter, I will put is greater than 710 milliliters, right? The greater or lesser than sign. Or you have the approximation sign, which is like a wave atop the straight line, which looks like an equal sign, but it's not. That's APP, approximations. So I can put that it's approximate APP, that's certain amount of consumption for the liters of water and the electricity, because I don't have the numbers. So I'm always estimating how much, but the mathematical equations will stay the same because it's based on the same principles. So the principles will not change, right? The principles will not change. Those operating principles will remain the same. Will remain the same. Will remain the same. Will remain the same. The equations, the minus, the subtractions, the additions, right? We will always add them all at the end of the day. All the washing machines, we will add them. How much we will add them to know the consumption, because if one's 4 liters, 5 liters, 6 liters, right? It could be 6, 7, 8, 9. So we add them all together, how many machines were used. Well, if it's 44 people that go in, it's not, of course, related. That's not related that it can always be the same, right? Because there's different rates. And so the different rates of consumption, we have to add them all. So that's where the addition comes in. The addition, paradoxically, well, it's a mathematical way to do it. It will be I think Croatia's go against Portugal. That's the Portuguese flag. That's for the World Cup against Croatia. Tough team. Portugal. Give some charities, millionaires, players, and owners of the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, because our public workers picking up the garbage, the recycling, they're also athletes. For years, I've been calling it for the reduction of the tickets, 44.9%. 44.9%, the reduction of the tickets, 44.9%. Look at these. Hey. Love it. Just those are gorgeous, amazing. I love those, so tall, just so big flowers, And so for the days preceding today, for the months and years, all that has been set as a data of consumption rates for the liters of water and the minuses for the electricity. So all of that is added integrally. So all of that addition will give us a big number. And in relation to the number will, of course, be not just an addition, but a subtraction, right? Not just an addition, but a subtraction. And so quantifiably so, we would have an addition which we have as related to the left and the right of the zero, basically. right? That's basically the days that the laundromat is closed. Then the laundromat is closed. So we would have some of those days. I don't know yesterday if it was open or not, but there's a possibility. That's a gorgeous garden there. And so the amount of laundry soap and laundry detergent, that's for the individual. But that's also a cost, right? That's also a cost. And another thing to know, I guess, in the mathematics is that those machines only become profitable after they're paid off. So it could be that it takes some hundreds of times of usage and tokens being inserted, put in them. Because if there were, let's say if the machine cost 2,000, 2,500 and 5,000, whatever, 4,000, each machine kind of different cost. They're Swedish. Then that means that until those are paid off, let's do it more easy. Let's say for the $4 machine that I used, that machine cost $2,000 a few years ago, let's say 7 years ago, to buy it, purchase it. So if it was $2,000, that's 2,000 divided by 4. So that's 500, right? So that means that machine had to be used at least 500 times until it was paid off in full. 500 times at least. If that's the math, it can vary. It could be that it was $1,500, $1,000. It could be less or more. It could have been 2,500, 3,000, 4,000. It could be more or less than 2,000. Of course, all that. Look at this beautiful garden. All that is another play that is, of course, the mathematics that is integral on the relation where we are explicitly to correlate it from a perspective of knowledge in the terms of that there's something that we haven't accounted for because that machine will consume electricity. So if it's used 500 times, like I said, until they can pay it off, each time that will be used, that will be a different amount. A different amount of electricity. So that electricity will add. Oh, look at those. They're so nice. I like the. Don't you like it? These are so nice, eh? These ones also are nice and cute, eh? Yeah, I love flowers. Have a nice day. Yeah, that's a nice lady. Smile nicely, and she probably said, "Oh, what a weirdo." Yeah, and what a weirdo, probably said, "Hey, what a weirdo." Yeah, I can be very weird and strange and awkward, and that's why I got out of the way, because I saw my fellow auntie there, call you aunties and uncles and cousins here in the great Canada, and coast to coast, ocean to ocean, to the North American Collective, and that's what we are, a common imperial republic, which is soon to be via my Trinity theories, the DRT, that refusion to DFT, and I saw that auntie had was marching or taking a few steps in the several directives, and of course how I made it safer by of course crossing on the side. So of course being that crossing on the side, and of course it was the crossing on the side of the street, that's why I took a few steps. That's why I took a few steps, That's why I took a few steps to let her safe passage by me, because I have this on. See? I have this, so this is added. This is added on. So I have this addition on the right. I have that addition, and that's what it is with that, and that's what it is on the go. That's what it is on the go. That's what it is on the go. That it is on the go, right? And of course all that's why I apply the strategy to move out of the way for them. And of course all that to say, and of course all that faculties, of course, that is and that is what we have today, where we correlate our valuations, but of course it's something which have to be integral, and of course all that integral aspect is of course the faculty of the domain of me applying this difference of my brain for her safety and security, because I saw that she has some mobility mobility. Her she needs some more assistance for her mobility, auntie, and this I included my strategies to move out of the way a few steps for her to be, and she smiled, she nodded, and this once she interacted and had a little small talk, which is great. And for safety, that's what I do when I see other citizens, whether you have a baby carriage or a trailer, or whether you have whatever, something that is with the children, or I calculate the distance, the ratio, and the movement of the fellow citizens individual, and I apply in consequence the strategies. Usually it's 4 steps to the left or to the right for a safer passage for different individuals. In this case, call her auntie, for example. Here, gonna pause. Gonna pause and gonna rock and roll and gonna hold up and going to continue because I have this weight, right? So this weight is something which we correlate upon, and that's what we. Sorry, you see the brains of Aspies are different. So like I said, there's always mathematics involved. So there's always mathematics involved. And those mathematics are of course always involved due to the relationship, of course. So the math is everywhere. So for example, as you look at these cars, these cars always, of course, calculate. And of course, always they calculate the dimensions of the space. So see, for example, that car will move at a certain distance. So there's the mathematics. That distance will be added to its total distance for today. And of course, it will consume, of course, different amounts. So, of course, the different amounts that it will consume, it will be related to that faculty. So, of course, the relationship of the faculty will be that all the cars will have an integral, of course, amount. So that integral amount, which will be, for example, calculated for the sequence, and of course, that sequence will be, of course, always in the correlation. Always in that correlation. So always in that correlation to the mathematics as it proceeds. For example, see here, all those cars will of course traverse. So for example, you see that car will be always added. They will always add a distance. So that distance will always be added to the other distance. So there will be an addition of plus. And that plus, of course, will be 5 meters, 6 meters, 7 meters, and 8 meters. So there's always mathematics. You see, this car will always add mathematics here and there. So, for example, that car will add 5 meters, the other one will add 10 meters, and it will consume gas or electricity. So here, as they go east, while they go north and south and east and west, I could stay here and I could just do math. For example, this car now is adding 5 meters, 10 meters, 6 meters, 7 meters until it gets to 1,000 meters. And once it gets to 1,000 meters, they'll, of course, calculate to 1,000 meters, which will become a kilometer. So that kilometer will be added to another kilometer, and of consequence, and that kilometer will be added, well, until it gets to 1,000 meters. So once it gets to 1,000 meters, it will add another, of course, kilometers. So of course, all that mileage will be added on, right? Because each and every, now the cars are in stopping. So when the car is stopping, when the car is stopping, there's no distance being added. But that car now is 5 meters, 10 meters, 6 meters, 7 meters. So you see the mathematics. Mathematics. You like mathematics? Okay, I love you too. Thank you for the support. I don't know what you said, but whatever the case may be. So of course, all that, this is mathematics. And all that mathematics is, of course, the relation where we have now. I'm not sure what the lady said. I didn't even know if it was related to me. Anyways, the mathematics which are having now are always stressed. So that's what I love, the mathematics. See, I guess maybe, I don't know, I know it's weird, awkward. Aspies, we can be strange, so that's what we have, of course, in the relation, of course, what we have now. So all the mathematics, for example, this fellow cyclist is, of course, adding a certain mileage. And of course, all the certain mileage that's being added to all these cars are always in faculty. a million fall throughout North America because there's a million cars. So each cars that are in distance are of course related where we have now to be related. So of course all that relation is of course relation to the faculty. So of course this car will have a certain amount of mileage, and of course that car will have a certain amount of mileage which we added, and of course all the cars now in mode have a mode of course that they add, and of course all that they add is mileage, but there's also consumption rate. So mathematics is everywhere. So the mathematics is of course something where we have now related upon. So that mathematics is of course something where we have in everything that we do. For example, across North America, there's tens of thousands of cars that are circulating, right? There's tens of thousands of cars that are circulating. Tens of thousands. There are tens of thousands of cars that are circulating, and of course the tens of thousands of cars that are circulating are all added mileage, and of course mileage upon mileage will add to a great number, because now throughout Canada, United States, there's tens of thousands of cars. There's tens of thousands of cars. So tens of thousands of cars creates a mathematical number which is astronomical. Right? An astronomical number. Think about that. Just imagine that. Throughout Quebec, Canada, there's tens of thousands of cars. So all these tens of thousands of cars are circulating, and they're all consuming gas. So mathematics is everywhere. Math is everywhere. It's just you got to see it. If you don't see it, because you don't like math, for example, this car will have a consumption rate per 100 kilometers. That car will have a consumption rate. So that's mathematics, because if it's 6.6 liters per 100 kilometers, then it will always be 6.6. This one will always be that amount. So you can know how to plan for an excursion, right? That's what I love about math. I could do this all day, and it is something that has to be correlated. So for example, this car will consume, I don't know, let's say 8 liters per 100 kilometers. So if you want to go for 400 kilometers, then it's 8 times 4. Then it's 32, right? 32. And so that one and that one will be added. That one will be added and added and added together. And the fact that now I'm in my element. I can go on and on for hours, eh? And I'm no Claude Chan and Stefano Dobleja, but they will always be in that domain. So of course, always in that domain will be that they're added together. So this addition is a number, because today, now, across the 10, the 50, and the 3, there's tens of thousands of cars. Trucks and cars delivering, and cars with commuters going east, west, north, south. You know, and in the parallel timeline, in the year darkness 2030, I build design super satellites, computers, microchips, and all things to do with gadgets and telecommunications, and of course all those who are of course involved in the production distribution of food. Now they're doing some distribution of food in the vans, in the trucks. So across the 50 states, across Canada, United States, and that from the higher level, from I guess the eye of the sun, if you will, and in the parallel timeline where I build satellite supercomputers, microchips to of course monitor 24/70 kilometers and the mileage. That is of course always the relationship where we have now, of course, to correlate where we have to correlate ourselves with. So of course all that correlation is something what we have of course in this domain. So of course Asperger's syndrome can be seen as weird. Maybe that lady, I don't know, she crossed the street. I don't know what she said in Russian or Ukrainian. I can't really speak Russian that well. So mathematics is everywhere. Math is really everywhere. It's just you gotta see it. Do you see it now? Do you see it now? So, for example, this is an individual unit of a car. It has a certain amount of mileage, which it did until it's based until to now, for today and for to now, right? Today, that car might have had 144,000 kilometers. This car might have 93,000 kilometers. That car might have 50,000. This car might have 222,418. Right? So all of this, maybe I wanted to ask if she was okay with the water, if she needed some. I don't have water to give her, but I would have wanted to tell her because it's hot to stay hydrated, but I believe she said something in Russian or Ukrainian. Unfortunately, French, English, and I manage in Spanish. Spanish I manage, French and English, but other languages I will have trouble with. Maybe German a bit. I will have trouble with. Please don't pollute here, please. This is a public garden, and this has to be put in the recycling. That one's beautiful, eh? Look at that, it has nice and yellow there. So gorgeous. Thank you for planting it. See how it moves on the side here of the garden, and it's nice and red. I like it. Thank you. But when my brain is super focused, super intense, I wasn't even too keen on responding because I was so intense and concentrated in the math that I wasn't even sure. She said to me, doctor, something 2 times. Maybe she needed a doctor. I don't know. She didn't look too well. But I tried to engage, but there wasn't an English response, and I had to switch to French, but just didn't have the time. I don't know. It's hard for me to. But with Aspie's, things have to be straightforward and direct, Straightforward and direct, and very, very precise. Very precise. Otherwise, my brain has trouble with small talk or reading social cues. I hope you're well, lady, and just stay hydrated, It's important to stay hydrated today. I think that was an issue she might have had. Hydration. Even me, I'm thirsty, although I hydrated at 7:10. Anyways, so I was singing a real rock and roll now, and it's hard. Maybe the lady was suffering from heat, and I don't know, try to communicate to the best of my ability and engage further. But with Aspies, the communication has to be directed. Of course, the Aspies, where Aspies were difficult I can be difficult to manage. The characteristics can be strange, awkward, and bizarre. And of course, the awkwardness and the bizarre is something which we have, of course, now to correlate. And of course, thank you for the donation here, but what's that? I'll leave it. Thank you for all those that are gonna go to waste. Anyways, so for example, math is everywhere. The mathematics behind, of course, the relationship is where we got. Oh, nice. Somebody had donated a little bit of jambon. I guess we're gonna have to take some of this food, Let's see. Chicken bees and fettuccine for my friend, for me, for her. That's always grateful for that. Gonna check a little bit of that and take one more. What is this? Some ham. Thank you. Hi. Don't worry, don't need to apologize. So math is everywhere. So now there's tens of thousands of cars, and all these cars are consuming either electricity or gas. And of course, they're adding a distance. For example, all the percentages and the ratios that are adding up is mathematical, right? So math is everywhere. But when I say math is everywhere, then of course I have to specify what do I mean. Because if you don't like math, or if you do like math like me, then we have to engage in a conversation. For example, now I took some food security, right? So I took some food security, which was transported most likely to the fridge. Most likely, at some point in time, it was a car, or it could have been that part of the food came by. Part of the food came by the plane, or part of the food came by the water, by the ship. Of course, if it came by the ship with that is something which we have, of course, to be thinking about, because that means that it was transported by ship and it got all the way to the dock, to the docks. And of course, basically, of course, being that it is to the dock, that it got transported to the docks. And then from this beautiful garden which we have, then from the docks, it will be transported to certain locations. And of course, the certain locations where we have is, of course, the reality that it had to move. That it had to move. So, of course, because it had to move, it had to be transported twice. What we could be, because some goods come by the ports. Some goods come by the ports, and of course, because they come by the ports, that means that they have to be unloaded on the docks. That means that they have to be unloaded on the docks, and that means that they have to be further transported, or they can come by train. But at this point in time, there's thousands of miles and kilometers being added across Canada in this point in time, because there's the highways, there's the roads, smaller cities, big cities. Just in Montreal, there's probably thousands of cars, if not tens of thousands of cars in circulation now. Do you see it now? The math. So there's always mathematics in my brain. This is so nice. This is one of my favorite gardens here. So nice, and especially these yellow ones are so big. They're so good. These ones just bring me so much joy. These are so nice. One of the best. Just a gorgeous. I just love it so much. This is amazing. I would like to have it at home. I guess I take it. I can't take it, but I take it because it's kind of nice. But these ones also, and furthermore, those are pretty nice as well. And those pretty red ones, and that's how we got, of course, now to be. Yeah, so math is everywhere. So back to the mathematics behind the distances of the car. So each car in motion adds a meter, 10 meters, 5 meters every second. For example, this car, and I count 1, 2, 3, maybe that's 10 meters. Until it's 1,000 meters, that will be a kilometer. So that's when we do the conversion, right? Until its destination. And let's look at the price of gas. The price of gas went up again, 177. So it's 27, of course, cents, 27 cents higher. And of course, 27 cents higher than what it was. So basically, you pay about, well, in percentage, well, gotta watch it here across the street. I gotta get it on the left and on the right and in the middle. And of course, all that relationship, of course, is to be in the relationship of what we have now. Now we have the relationship and the transportations which always occur in parallel to the price of gas, that it's a burdensome increase for many. It's a burdensome increase for many. So if it's a burdensome increase because of the salaries have not increased, the salaries have stagnated. So that's where most of the problems can be for many citizens who have to drive to commute. I don't drive, I take the public transit, and today I marched and I see the public workers there. Thank you. And we have to correlate it, and we have to be amalgamated in that relationship, of course, the way we have now to be always in the plurality of the events where we relate ourselves with, and that relationship is always faculty and always in the faculty of the administrations where we correlate ourselves with. So that correlation is always a relationship of where we have to correlate of our dynamics. And of course, all that dynamic is, of course, the representation of the dynamic what we have now. So, of course, all that dynamic is also the representation of the faculty, of course, of the administrative affairs. But in the faculty of which we have to be, in the relationship of existence, is always that it is a plurality of mathematics, which is a constant, or if it's a variable, of course. If it's a variable in that integral affairs of where we coexist and where we exist, as we have this